In this video, we'll talk about how to use color and contrast appropriately when thinking about web accessibility in school wires. One thing to consider when thinking about how you use color in your website, whether that be classroom or school or district level website, is to not use color to convey meaning. And the reason for this is that there are a variety of forms of color blindness out in the world, and color blindness prevents people from seeing colors the same way other folks do. So we don't want color to be the sole measure of meaning in a graphic or a bunch of text on the page. Here's an example. Click the green button to continue, the yellow button if you need help, or the red button if you want to quit. Many people will see the green, the yellow, and the red, and therefore know which button to click on for the particular action they want to take. But if you have some form of color blindness, you might see one of these schemes on the right. You might see various shades of yellowy gray, or you might see some pinky orange, or you might see something like the example on the bottom. In any case, you wouldn't see the traditional green, yellow, red that's being indicated in terms of the action to be taken. One way to fix this might be to add text to the buttons themselves that have the specific actions. For example, the green button might have continue, the word continue on it. Here's another more probably common example of how someone might use color to convey meaning, where two sets of text have been split into lists, and the user has differentiated those lists by making one list red and one list blue. However, if one is colorblind, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two lists. What you could do in this case is label the red list with a title, red list, and the blue list with a blue list title. Or simply don't use color at all and label the first list List A and the second list List B. The second big idea when using color in web design is to keep contrast very high. If you think about the colors on a color wheel, colors that are close to each other in the color wheel have very low contrast. They're very similar and hard to tell apart. Colors further apart in the wheel, or even opposite each other in that wheel, have high contrast because they're very different. There are some nifty web-based tools for checking contrast ratios between two colors. This one here is out on GitHub and lets you type in the color of your background and foreground, or your text color and background, and the number in the little circle in the middle tells you the contrast ratio between those two colors. Generally speaking, we want a contrast ratio of between 4.5 to 1 and above for regular text. Larger text can have a slightly smaller contrast ratio, but there are very specific guidelines for that. Here you can see pink and black has a good contrast ratio, pink and red not so much. Here are some examples of what text might look on a school wires page. The first abracadabra here is slightly off-white on a black, which does have a good high contrast ratio. The second one is blue text on a lighter background, has good contrast ratio, and the lower one is the pink and red combo we explored before. It has a terrible contrast ratio. You would not want to use that on your page. In short, you want to aim for something more like the example on the left in this image and not so much the one on the right, which has a lot of color and is very distracting, and the contrast is poor.